I went back and watched the game last night, and I really dove into the Steelers and Justin Fields because I knew this day was coming. Like, I knew today was going to be what it was. I didn't know for certain that it was going to turn out the way that it did, but I knew today was going to be where we are right now. And I wanted to make sure that I had my hands on all the film, that I was able to sit down and have a real understanding of what Justin Fields has done, so that I didn't come on here and just spew some nonsense about, oh, well, Justin Fields is 25 years old and he's the future and you have to do this. And at the same time, I didn't want to come on here and say, well, Justin Fields stinks and here it is, and not have anything to back it up. Justin Fields has looked very impressive at times this season. Very impressive. And if you watch just at a glance, Justin Fields doesn't look too bad. But if you really sit there and dive into this film of week 6 against the Las Vegas Raiders, it's a tough one for Justin Fields. It's a tough one. And I'm not saying that the argument should be made that he should be benched. I still think there's a very good argument for him to be on the field, and a very good argument that he is the right option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think that you have to bring into account that week 6 was a lot more rough than it looked. And I get it, 32 points. But there were moments where you watched this and went, Justin, man, this is not good, and you need to be better than this. Now, that being said, we'll dive into everything and where we currently stand with this competition and where we think the outcome will come, plus what we believe the outcome should be if we were the ones making that call. We'll start with what's going to happen. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have reopened their quarterback competition. Russell Wilson will take reps this week along with Justin Fields. I know that Mike Tomlin did not have a clear cut, yes, he will take first team reps, but yes, he will take first team reps. Mike Tomlin will likely decide the starting quarterback Friday afternoon after practice. So anybody who had plans, me and Nick included, who were saying, oh man, nice, easy Friday afternoon. Nope. We'll be there getting the news, running with the news, and then jumping on here to talk about it. Obviously, that is when the Steelers will announce their quarterback. And then the big question, what's going to happen? Nick, I know what's going to happen. I think you know what's going to happen. But I'll ask you first, because I'm going to go and do a long spiel here. Who's going to be the starting quarterback in week 7 for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'll put it this way because I want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. The combined age of the starting quarterbacks is going to be 75, not 65 on Sunday, because I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. And I think anybody who thinks otherwise just has not been paying enough attention.
Yes, this is Russell Wilson's job. I will say this. This is a Mason Rudolph classic Pittsburgh quarterback competition. That's what this is. This is a Mike Tomlin will juice it up. He will say everything he needs to say to the public to make sure that he looks good in the eyes of Justin Fields and the eyes of the fans and the eyes of the people who do not agree with this situation. But Russ will take 95% of the snaps. This will be Russell Wilson's offense. This will be Russell Wilson preparing to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers with a hint and a splash of Justin Fields in there, who knows 100% that he has already lost this job. That's where the Pittsburgh Steelers currently stand. This will be exactly as it's been in the past. I mean, Kenny Pickett goes down 2 years ago, or last year, excuse me, and it's Mitch Trubisky versus Mason Rudolph. We're going to have a competition. There is no competition. Mason Rudolph took 3 first-team snaps that week, 3 of them. And, I mean, I get it. Mason Rudolph at the time was not Mason Rudolph by the end, but we knew what was happening. The Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Kevin Dotson lets it slip before the summer, and all summer long, Mike Tomlin's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody knew what you were talking about. Everybody knew what Kevin Dotson was talking about. There was no real competition. That's what this is. This is we'll save face by saying it's a competition, but this is Russell Wilson's job, and the Steelers will proceed forward with Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. I'll ask you if Justin Fields should be the starter, but I think I know that answer, so I'll ask you this first. Do you think there's a situation on Sunday where the Pittsburgh Steelers utilize both of these quarterbacks? Because Mike Tomlin sure made it sound like there was a possibility they were going to.
Is there a chance that they do that? Most definitely. I mean, when you talk about, or when you see Mike Tomlin, talk about how much he loves Justin's athletic ability and what Justin's athletic ability has done for them. And whenever he was asked whether or not, Russell can do similar things to Justin, he straight up said, no, he can't. He can't do what Justin does with his legs. He admires that part of Justin's game, and he recognizes the value in that part of Justin's game. So do I think that they're going to try to? Yes. We've talked about it very briefly. Do I think they would succeed in doing that? I don't think I have faith that this offensive coaching staff can successfully implement a 2-quarterback system going into Sunday.
No, it depends on where they go with it. And it's going to be very predictable. And that's where the only issue in my head stands. Like, I don't think the Steelers are in a situation where if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none, because I look at it and say, if you utilize it correctly, you could get a lot out of Justin Fields. Like, you could get a lot. You could utilize him on third down situations where you need 3 yards and you're saying, screw it, we're playing option football, and running a play like they ran on 4th and 1 where he has the option to pass, but really he could just run around the corner if that's what needs to be. You could do the same thing in goal line. But again, it's going to become very predictable. Justin Fields is on that field. Oh, okay. I wonder what happens. I wonder if they're going to run the football. I wonder if Najee Harris is actually going to touch the football. No, he's not. It's going to be in Justin Fields' hands. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers offense will live and die off of what Justin Fields can do on that play. I don't think it's the worst idea. I do think it's going to be so predictable that the amount of times you could actually use it will be limited. I also think that gimmicks are not good in the NFL, and eventually this is going to run its course, which is not what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to do. But Tomlin made it clear as day that this was going to be a 2-quarterback system. Russell Wilson will lead the way. He will be the guy. Justin Fields will come in here to utilize his legs and go from there. Now, the important questions. What does Russell Wilson's leash look like if he has any? Is there any chance that Justin Fields ever starts a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers ever again? Or did the Pittsburgh Steelers just ruin this? And what happens when the Steelers struggle because Russ is not the guy for X amount of weeks? Do you go back to Justin? Is it over? Do you just jump ship and say we screwed up? And at the end of it all, if it doesn't work out, if this just goes right down the gutter, where does Mike Tomlin stand at the end of it? I'll start with the leash. Basketball season is right around the corner, and there are few live events that make you feel as in the moment, and I get it, football season is probably one of them, where you feel like you're there, you're part of the action. Well, let me tell you about Game Time and how Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I decided to jump on and see what Pittsburgh Steelers versus New York Jets tickets look like in primetime, and it took me 3 seats before they hit me with a great deal, telling me that not only are these probably the cheapest, but for the view, they may be the best deal that anybody can offer. Let me walk you through a couple of really nice things about Game Time. First, priority. Game Time Picks curates to make it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They give you all-in pricing, which means that this feature shows you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout, because that is the absolute worst thing about buying tickets. They give you seat views because nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to show up not knowing what their view of the stadium is going to look like. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time ticket coverage, which means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I believe personally, Russell Wilson's leash is all season long, that essentially it doesn't exist, that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be inches away from the postseason or missing the postseason before they decide to make a change and go back to Justin Fields. Once Russ, and I've said this many times before, once Russ takes that starting job, it is nearly impossible to put Justin back in. Why? Well, to answer my second question of, is Justin ever going to start a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers again? Probably not. They probably look at him and he probably looks at them as, well, we had a good run. This was fun. We gave it a shot. But chances are I'm not going back out there. And really, I don't want to go back out there because you just benched me at 4-2 with 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. That's what you did. I mean, that's not a team that shows much faith in a kid, and that kid shouldn't have much faith in that team. So I don't believe Justin Fields is the future anymore. I think that's over with. And I believe that Russell Wilson, unless this team is literally desperate to make the playoffs, he has not taken a seat on that bench the rest of the season. Russ can burn this ship to the bottom of the ocean if he wants to. Mike Tomlin's going to sink with it because he made the decision, and he knew that decision was coming the entire time. I'll ask you in case you feel differently. What's Russell Wilson's leash? Excuse me. And does Justin Fields ever start a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers again?
I think the best case scenario for the Steelers in this situation, which let me start off by saying I don't think it's a good case scenario to be holding a quarterback competition a month and a half into the season, but that's where we stand. The best case scenario and the most reasonable scenario in my eyes after seeing this a couple hours ago in Tomlin's press conference was you have 2 weeks until the bye. You're playing 2 teams with losing records on your home field before the bye. And I understand that Mike Tomlin for the longest time has wanted to see what does Russell Wilson look like in this offense. He wanted the answer to that question. And we knew, like a dog on a bone, he was going to get the answer to that question.
Yes.
If I'm the Steelers and I'm dead set on trying to see this with Russell Wilson, I say, here's your 2 weeks, put on film what you do in these 2 weeks. And by the bye week, you need to have a quarterback. And whether that's Russ, whether that's Justin, the decision needs to be made by the bye week going into that second half hellscape of a schedule. That's the most, I would say that makes the most sense to me from where we're at.
Yeah.
But do I think that they do that? No, I think that the leash is extremely long for Russell Wilson, even though it shouldn't be.
Do you think that the Steelers are going to go into week 8 if they announce Russ as like, hey, this is still open, we don't know who's going to be the starter in week 8?
I think there's a chance if he doesn't go out there and dominate. I think it's the same thing as we were talking about with Justin, but I think it's a little bit less contingent upon performance because I think Justin would have had to go out there and look like the second coming of Peyton Manning for them to say, all right, you're the starter. But I think if Russ doesn't go out there and shine against a Jets team that, let's face it, has a defense that will likely overmatch the Steelers' offensive line,
yes,
then I think that they'll be in the same position and say, all right, well, we're going to try to see Russ again in week 8, but we're not going to name him the starter of the future or the starter of the rest of the season. I think that at the end of the day, they need to take this into the bye week at this point because you saw what you had in Justin and you had a 4-2 record with Justin. If you go 1-1 with Russ over the next 2 weeks against these 2 teams, depending on how it looks, there still needs to be a conversation.
It is like I laughed there because my brain immediately started thinking, the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to have an unofficial starting quarterback for the entire 2024 season. They are going to go 17 weeks of Mike Tomlin is going to walk to that podium 17 times this season and say, yeah, guys, I'm just not ready to make that official announcement yet. We're going to leave the door open. I'm not here into hypotheticals all season. We're going to be here all year long talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation. That is hilarious. That's hilarious to think that we are going to get that every single week from Mike Tomlin. I like the situation that you've laid out of the bye week. I think that's a good one. Do I think it's realistic? There's a part of me that says yes. There's a lot of me that says Mike Tomlin already knows this is Russ. And next week, no matter what, the Steelers will move in the direction of this is Russell Wilson's job and it will remain Russell Wilson's job. I think Russ could sink the ship, man. I think Russ can go 0-4 over the next 4 games, fall to 5-6 or 4-6, excuse me, and hit that back end, hit that really tough spot in the back end. I mean, now you don't even get the buffer. You had the buffer of Washington. You don't even get the buffer anymore. So you could find yourself heading into, I mean, you get the buffer of Cleveland and maybe Cincy, but you hit that back half of Baltimore, Philadelphia, Kansas City, like you have nothing there. And I think Mike Tomlin might send that team into there no matter what the abyss is looking like, because Russell Wilson is that guy. If this does not work out, and we'll move on from quarterbacks after this because there's still a lot to talk about. If this does not work out and you were Art Rooney, I'm not asking what the realistic situation is, because the realistic answer is boring. And honestly, it's the wrong answer, because it's not hot at all. There's no worries at all. But if you're Art Rooney and this does not work out and Russ sinks the ship, and Russ was the wrong dock to tie your boat to, as heavily as Mike Tomlin has tied his boat to Russell Wilson, what's your level of concern in your head coach if you are Art Rooney? Not asking what Art Rooney is thinking, but if you are Art Rooney.
If I am Art Rooney, I'm looking at my head coach and saying, man, you have botched the most important position in our sport ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And there are some that believe he was forced to retire. So you forced him into this to get to the other side, and the grass has not been greener because your quarterback play has been horrible. And when you finally have two quarterbacks that are at the very least league average, you decide not to decide in the first half of a season where you needed to make your bread in the first half of the season. If I'm Art Rooney and I see him botch this and it doesn't work out, and the Steelers make this mistake and they lose, Justin Fields because they lost his trust and Russell Wilson isn't the guy, I look at Tomlin and I say, listen, you're for sure not getting another contract, and you'll be lucky to make it out of this season.
Yes.
But I'm not Art Rooney, and we all know that's not how he's going to handle it.
We all know what the situation will be. We all know that there is never a hot seat for Mike Tomlin. There never will be. But if we're going to speak in terms of what should be, I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best head coaches in football. I think he is incredibly undervalued a lot of the time in the eyes of many fans. I also think that he makes the most ridiculous decisions, because he makes a decision 4 months ago and ties himself to that decision, and he does it all the time. So I agree with you. If this did not work out and I'm Art Rooney, I'm looking Mike T in the eyes and saying, dude, you did this. You screwed this up. And I would say, Mike Tomlin has deserved that last shot. He has deserved that last shot. So I would tell him, you have one season to fix it, but that season's not looking good. It's over. That's how I would handle the situation. That's not how the situation's going to be handled, but that's how I would handle the situation.